Hey, ladies. Happy Saturday. I took a poll a few days ago. Wait, let me back up here for just a second. For those of you who are new, we've had a number of new members. I'm Jenny Glick. I started this group a couple of years ago. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a certified sex therapist. And I started this space here because I work now with women as a mentor. So I think of myself as a guide, a way shower when women get stuck in relationship, because getting stuck in relationship is a thing and it happens a lot. And after almost 20 years working with individuals and families clinically, I decided to do something that would very specifically help women get an outcome. Because often in the kind of work that I was doing the last 10 years as a clinician, what people wanted was an outcome. You know, my first 10 years, I worked with trauma and processing different kinds of abuse, EMDR, play therapy, all kinds of things. But the second half of what I did was really with couples and individuals who felt stuck, who felt like their partner was more of a roommate, people who had mismatched sexual desire, healing from affairs, wondering why they kept dating the same kind of person over and over again, those kinds of things. So, you know, after doing so much of that work, I really decided, let's create something to actually help move women from point A to point B, because that's the point, right? Is to like get out of this stuck place. So I asked a question a few days ago about what folks were interested in for this live training today. And the winner is how to know if you are complete in a relationship. Absolutely, you are totally welcome. How to know when you're complete in a relationship. And I use those words, complete, if one, it feels better than thinking about divorce, though divorce is a thing. And if you're married and if you are complete in a relationship, you might end up getting a divorce. You might decide to do that. Sorry, I'm doing this thing because the hair, we all have the lockdown hair. I need a haircut. It's driving me crazy. So we know that when we get into relationship, here's what happens. I'm going to sort of explain the anatomy of relationship to you. So when we meet someone, traditionally we call it falling in love. And what that feels like is, it feels like the other person is my person. It feels like they complete me, right? That's how we talk about it. They get us. They understand how we think, how we feel. So if you imagine you're each a circle, so you bring your circle to your partner's circle and your circles come together and you're like, oh my gosh, same. And then we say, I'm in love with this person. I want to spend the rest of my life with this person. Let's get married, or let's move in together. Let's have babies, whatever you decide. So your circles are like on top of each other, right? And there's a lot of really great, healthy attachment that happens in that space. So in that space, they're like mushy together and all of those yummy things. And then one of three things happen. You either actually get married, you have a child, and or you move in together. And generally when that happens, you realize this circle is different than your circle. There's a difference here. And that difference can create strife between the two of you, because then you start arguing around the difference, right? That you want A and they want B. And then what happens there is, because we're so conditioned to see that as that's the problem, that the difference is the problem, right? Then we are in struggle. And we get in this like tug of war. And people say things like, why can't it be the way that it was in the beginning? And the reason why it can't is because you can't be fused as a mature adult, because you have to learn how to do what's called differentiation. Differentiation is when these two circles separate, but are still connected. Like the infinity sign. Those of you who've been around me a while, I talk about that a lot. So it's like, it's two whole human beings that are connected in the center. And there's this like flow back and forth, and there's connection and communication and give and take and receiving, right? So there's this back and forth that's happening. And so this is the background information, so you know what it is I'm talking about, and so that you know what's happening in your relationship. What generally happens is when we start differentiating, so we start recognizing, oh my gosh, the other person is different, we engage in this practice of telling ourselves, if they were not this way, I would feel better. If they were more like me, if we parented the same, if, fill in the blank, then I would be happier, which maybe is the case. I don't know, possibly. What I do know is that when we're in that state of what feels like strife, what feels like struggle, sort of this push-pull situation, that's a healthy opportunity for growth, because we are mammals and mammals grow. And how we grow is through challenge, right? That's how we get better at something. I was doing an exercise thing this morning, and it was hard, and I wanted to stop moving my arms. And I was like talking to the lady on my iPad, like, this is really hard. I don't want to do this anymore. And she's like, keep moving your arms, keep moving your arms. But that challenge of like keep repetitive, when we are invited to repetitively, right, like do something that fatigues us, that challenges us, that's where we grow new musculature. That's where we become stronger, right? And it's the same in relationship. That when we're invited, because we have a challenge to kind of grow and learn above the challenge, right, to grow through the challenge, then we become stronger. The problem is that many couples and people here in this space, I certainly had this experience myself, is we don't see it as a challenge to grow through. We see it and experience it as a struggle. And so then we're constantly in this struggle back and forth with the person, where it feels like that tug of war. Okay, so the question, and feel free to type in the chat as I'm sharing here if you're live on the broadcast. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And so the question, how do I know when I'm complete? If you are like most people, what most people do is they say, this is hard. It's been going on this way for a really long time. I know it could be different. I want it to be better. I think it could be better with somebody else. And so then that's sort of the narrative, that is the narrative that they're listening to. And that's the space from which they make the decision. And in that process, what's happening is you're making a decision based on what's happening outside of you. It's an externally based decision. So this person is doing A, B, and C. Therefore, I'm going to choose to do something different, and then I won't have to deal with that person. Again, if that is your path and maybe you've done that, fantastic. That's great if that is your path. What I know from knowing something about relationship dynamics is that in general, the person that you're with is mirroring something that's going on internal to you. So there's a spiritual saying, as above, so below. So what is happening external to me is a reflection of what's going on in here. Anais Nin famously said, we do not see the world as it is, we see the world as we are, right? And in order to know if you're complete in a relationship, to me, it makes a lot of sense so that we're not repeating third grade with every single relationship, to take a look at what's going on in here. And most of us have not practiced actually feeling our feelings, like really, like what's happening here. The only way you can make a decision about your relationship, if you're married and you have kids, I mean, how many thousands of women have I worked with who've said, I am staying for the kids. I can't just leave. I'm staying, I'm willing to put up with a whole lot for the kids, right? And And what's really important is that narrative collapses you into a really particular experience. Does this make sense? For those of you who are listening or watching this on recording, I'd love for you to comment about this. Because I know that what I'm saying is not always typical. This isn't like normally how people talk about relationships. So it might be confusing to you, and that's totally cool. You can just tell me. If I have this narrative, I'm just going to stay for the kids, I want you to feel where that like parks me, right? If you're like most women who I've worked with, it parks you in a place of feeling like a martyr or a victim, or like if I decide to choose to not be married, then I'm harming my kids. And what kind of mom does that? Listen to that thinking pattern where you go. It's not like elevated, right? And most of us, and if you're in this space, my guess is you're somewhat spiritually oriented, right? You have some kind of orientation towards like growth, or you listen to Oprah Super Soul Sunday. Like there's something in you that gets that you're here to grow, to expand, to evolve. You have that sort of growth orientation in some way, shape, or form, because that's not like fringe anymore. It's pretty typical. And when I park myself in a belief, I guess I have to stay for the kids, it's such a heavy, contracted practice. That doesn't mean that staying for the children is bad, but creating a narrative that is more up-leveled, that allows you to be vibrant and to feel joy and appreciation and wonder and delight if you're going to stay. Does this make sense to you? Right? Because the thing is, if you know, how to know if you're ready to leave is, I would say, what are you practicing? We're ready to leave a relationship when we've been practicing something that serves us so well, when I have learned so much in terms of how to be in my own skin. I've learned so much in terms of who I am as a partner, a wife, a spouse, a lover, a best friend, and that I have maxed out my opportunity for growth. It's like if you had a piano teacher. When's it time to leave? When you have learned everything and you've mastered what you need to master with that person, right? And for some people, if you're listening to this and you're in a relationship with somebody who's abusive or who's not safe, the mastery is often how to set a boundary, right? The mastery is how is it that I show up and hold a boundary for myself. That container is a teacher. And bravo. And that's important work to do. So the answer to how do you know if and when it's time to go is nuanced, because we're human beings and it's complex. And there are so many things. I mean, this could be like an all-day training here. What's so important, number one, is that you have a deep relationship with yourself. And when I say you have a deep relationship with yourself, I don't mean you have a deep relationship with your thoughts, with that voice that's talking to you all day long about he or she and how they are this way or that way. And if they weren't that way, that's not a relationship with yourself. That's a whole lot of thinking, right? A relationship with yourself is different. It's intimate. A relationship with yourself invites you in, right? Remember when I said as above, so below? It invites you in down here. So many of us don't know how to simply feel what we're feeling. And right now, ladies, with what's going on, it's really important to have the ability to feel what you're feeling, because there are probably some feelings coming up right now. And to feel the feeling, because what will happen is we start to feel a feeling and then we pop out to a thought, right? So I feel a feeling of sadness or of grief or of fear or worry. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, right, I'm worried because what about the finances and what about the kids? And my parents were divorced and it was terrible for me. And now, pooh, I'm in thinking. And I totally missed feeling the feeling, right? And how we process our feelings is by feeling them. That's why they're called feelings. So most of us are totally parked in our habituated looping thinking. So a comment that came in, this makes sense, yes, for sure. And I have a question. I'm tired of having an immediate, harsh, emotional reaction to a comment or response to a question from my partner. How to hear a comment that I've heard many times, but that I'd like to catch myself before my emotions head to enough of this. Right. So number one, and I'm sorry, the software that I'm using doesn't tell me what your name is. So until I get on Facebook, I don't know what your name is. Whoever, if you want to write it in the comment, you can, but that's why I'm not addressing you by your name. Number one, you have to learn to be aware, which bravo you. You're aware, so you caught it. Fantastic. And the practice, and this is what I teach women to do, and it is a practice because it's new and it can be challenging to create a new behavior pattern when you have practiced having an immediate, harsh emotional reaction for, my guess is, more than like 3 days, right? If you're like, so, oh, it's Kelly. Of course it's Kelly. Hi. That, you know, when you've practiced that for so many years, right? What you're doing is you're shifting yourself out of that. And that immediate harsh response, when it comes up, take a breath. Shake it out, right? Use your body. Use your physical body. Right? Like, allow yourself to use the resource of your physical body to feel the thing, because the reaction, you well know this, Kelly, the reaction is reacting. It's just acting again, right? And so that's the trigger response. And you have so many practices to pivot out of that. The thing that's sort of interesting to me is, here's what I want to say is really noticing how it is that even that the story about your reaction is habituated, right? We can get so practiced at believing that we are a particular way, even when we've changed a lot and we're not really that way anymore. But we just go back to the old thought of, I'm that way. So what I would want for you is to really look at how often you don't react, because you don't all the time, right? And really focus on all the time that you don't react. And then you can fine tune those moments when the reaction wants to happen, right? So like, oh, I recognize right there that the reaction wants to happen. Huh. Okay, well, there it is, right? And being aware, part of where it is that we have choice around what we feel. But the only way we have choice is if I wake up, if I pay attention, right? I have to pay attention. This morning, I was angry. I like woke up pissed. Anybody else do that? It's not typical for me. I was like hot, mad, so mad. And I just, because I've had a practice for a long time, I'm like, wow, look at that. The like anger and the annoyance and the wanting to react to my family and to life and feeling that. And part of having an intimate relationship with ourselves is being able to have an intimate relationship with ourselves. So noticing that, noticing what's happening and taking good care of it. So I had my tea and I engaged in my morning practice. And my son wanted to talk to me. So I was talking to him and I wanted to be really present with him, but I could feel where I was just like all this emotion. And if I did not have a practice for a very long time, I could have taken that anger and been like, here's why I'm angry, because of this or that, or my husband, and he should have done that, and he did this last night, and how did it? And I would have like filled the whole space up with all these thoughts about it, right? And these stories. And then I will tell you right now, it would have been a huge fight and a Saturday morning argument, because I would have been pissed and then been a martyr and like, fine, I'll just do this and so much for a great weekend, right? But I didn't, because I have a relationship with myself, right? As above, so below. And so I have a relationship here, so I'm able to be like, wow. And I said to my son, I need to do some physical something because I have a lot of anger seeping out of me right now. And I love you too much for that to come your way. So I'm going to do that, and you can do your thing, and I will talk to you in a little bit, right? And so when we allow ourselves to be in deep relationship, it's really dynamic, right? And it's being in that rhythm, being in that flow. And it doesn't mean that we don't get pissed. It doesn't mean we're not scared or angry or, but it's no longer abandoning ourselves to the story of, oh, well, if he would change, if she would change, if they would change, if people would clean up this damn house, I wouldn't have to feel this way. How come I'm the only one, right? Like I could have gone down that. And if that was my current habituated place, and if I had been doing that for a long time, the thoughts would have probably included, I should just go do this on my own. Why am I even freaking here? Right? And from that place, in my opinion, that is not a healthy place to make a decision about your relationship. From that place of like push-pull, tug of war, right? Like spewing all the, well, let me tell you all the crap that my partner did. Yeah, I'm sure they did a whole lot of things, totally. And as above, so below. It's just how it is. And so what is it that I'm practicing? And this whole process, it's an inside job. It's an inside job. We got to start there. Got to start there. And there's resistance to that. And I get it. I absolutely get it. I teach it because I've done it. And it's not pretty and it's not always fun, but what in life that's worth doing is, if we're going to grow, right? It's putting our feet on that path and walking that walk, and then liberating ourselves from being stuck. Most of us will, park ourselves in quite a lot of suffering for years or decades, or maybe even our whole life, especially when it comes to relationship. And so if you're someone who's listening to this, and if you've had, if you've logged your time there, you don't have to keep living there, right? But it does mean that if you want something to change, you're going to have to change. That's just how it goes, right? And then as you do the change work, and as you grow a relationship with yourself, you become trustworthy, right? I've developed a relationship with myself that I can trust myself, because I don't abandon myself to anger and then let that anger turn into some toxic narrative that I run through my head and spew onto my family on a Saturday morning. So when I wake up and I feel angry, I'm watching that and I'm paying attention to it, and it's not who I am. It's a feeling that I'm feeling. And then I have lots of practices to hold me and to allow me to feel it and move through it so that I can come out the other end and be like, well, that was interesting. I was mad this morning, without there being a bunch of collateral damage with my family, right? And if you don't have some kind of practice to come back to, what happens is we're like, out there, and then it's this panic place of like, well, I don't know, and let me tell you what he did, and then this happened, and then she did that, and it's never going to change. And you can feel the crescendo of energy and the panic and the anxiety and the worry like spinning out of that, right? That is not a place to make any decision from. As above, so below, right? So if I'm in that spinning, then come back. Okay, how do we start here? How do we start here? And what that requires are a few things. So a practice, a daily practice, in order to build a rhythm and a routine so that you can get to know yourself, so that you can grow intimacy with your own self, so that you know who you are, so that you can be trustworthy. You know what most women say to me? I don't have time. I don't have time because I have all this other stuff in my work, and I have to do 14 hours of this and this and this, and then nobody understands, and then what did it? And I get it. I used to say that kind of stuff too, 100%. Yes. And so I'm then not trustworthy enough to take care of this very first thing, right? Because if I'm not going to do it, nobody else is going to do it. And nobody else is doing it because work wants you to be on another committee, and your husband wants you to pick up the kids, and your partner thinks that you're the one who should walk the dogs, and your kids are demanding and they keep walking into your office at home. And all of that is happening, right? And then what we're practicing is reacting, and then everything outside of me needs to change in order for me to be better. Right? And that's where most people live. And it will feel like a tug of war because it is. Because it is. And somewhere around about 10% of people will drop the rope. Most people won't. Because what does it require of you to drop the tug of war rope in that scenario, right? That push and pull. It requires you, get ready, to number one, have a lot of self-awareness to see that you're doing it. And to number two, take 100% accountability for your life. 100% accountability for your life. And to see that what is happening in my life is happening in my life because I have created it in some way, shape, or form. People hate it when I say that. So you can hate it too. That is fine with me. But it's just true. As above, so below. So when I talk to women, I talked to a woman yesterday, and she had a lot of things to say about her husband. So many women right now, when they call me with their husbands, they tell me that their husbands are narcissists. And firstly, there are not that many narcissists on the planet. But right now, everybody thinks their husband's a narcissist. You might think that your husband's a narcissist as well. And she had a lot of things to tell me about all the things that he is in the world, you know, and how he shows up and how he doesn't do this and that, which I get. Like, I get it. I've been doing this a long time, completely. So then I asked her, are you hard on yourself? And she was like, oh my gosh, I am so hard on myself. And she said, how did you know that? Because you're so hard on him. That's how. Because as above, so below. Right? Whatever I'm giving this person, I give to myself first. Whatever I'm feeding them, it came right through me. So that's what I have here. And so to think that this is going to change with this not changing is wishful thinking, right? And you know, some of the women who I work with, we call ourselves all kinds of things: gladiators, light warriors, grown-ass women. It is a grown-ass woman move to commit to this. It is. But nobody else is going to do it for you, ever. It's your job. And so when we recognize that and we get sober to the reality of our lives, like, whoa. And I remember my moment of sobriety with my husband. I do. And it was my own process and work that I had been doing and, thrashing around and all the stuff I had gone through, where I realized I am complicit in a toxic system that I am creating. And he's creating too, but I got to take 100% accountability for my part of it. And I remember like feeling sick to my stomach. Like, oh, I don't really want to look at that. I would much rather it be his fault, truth be told, right? And then I could leave and be like, he wouldn't change. And it's his fault because he wouldn't change. And let me tell you all the things he was terrible at. And that I tried and I read the books, but he wouldn't. And I could have that story that would keep me in a place where I was wronged by his lack of growth, right? Which is neither a good or a bad story. It's just a story. That was not the story I wanted to have. I wanted to have a story of I did every single bit of my growth work with this person. And as I do 100% of all my growth work in my 3rd grade class with him, I'm going to do it and learn it and be it. And what I found is then he started changing. And as I changed, he changed. And now, our anniversary is next month, 20 years. Look at that. And happy, genuinely. Like, he's my best friend. We have a great time together. But I had to start with me. Thanks, Colleen, for the thank you. And Kelly, thank you for that. I appreciate you both for being here. So it's an inside job. And how you will know when you're ready, number one, it's your decision. I was never a therapist I never told anybody to leave a relationship unless they were not safe. Like if they were physically being harmed, like you have to get safe, right? Or if your children are being harmed, you have to get safe. But it's your decision because you're making a decision for you. And what's important is to recognize what identity are you standing in when you make that decision. I knew for me, if I was going to leave my marriage, I did not want to leave with an identity of being a victim or being a martyr to my relationship and my husband, because we have a child together and I did not want to carry that sort of energy in any way. Because if I carried that energy with me, my kid would feel it. Like if we had gotten a divorce and if my son was like, why didn't you guys stay together? If I was like, well, I would have, but your dad wouldn't do his work. Like I didn't want to do that. I didn't even want to feel that moving through me. And so I had to commit to myself. What's the narrative? What's the practice? What's the identity that I need to be practicing? Because every day you're practicing something. Every day. There's no such thing as taking a day off. There's no such thing as being neutral around it. So the women who I work with, they come in at what we call your 1.0 software that you're running, the thinking, the believing, the acting, the feeling, all of that. And they want to be in this 2.0 up-leveled space. The only way you get there is by practicing it. And most of us between 1.0 and 2.0, man, there's some resistance and there's some feelings and it's scary and it's big. And I don't want to do it all the time, right? And it's why some people decide to have a trainer to help them. It's why I have mentors and trainers in my life, because otherwise, when it gets hard, I don't really want to do it, right? Yeah. It's great when you practice improving. A comment came in, I do practice improving every day. Yeah, and that's the point. And that's how you get from here to there. So I hope that that's helpful for those of you. I'm sure that, some of you were hoping that I'd be like, here's how you know when you're done. When A, B, and C happens, then you can leave, right? the way to your answer is through it, through this part of you, is coming back into this part of you, of who you are, getting clarity on that. For those of you who are listening who want to have a clarity call with me, I'd be happy to do that. So I do free 1-hour calls to get you clear on where it is that you're stuck in your relationship. And if I can help you move from your 1.0 to your 2.0, we'll have a conversation about that. And if not, I'll tell you what I think would be a better fit. But those 10% of women who decide to make that radical commitment, because it is radical to do your own inside work right now. All of our attention is pulling us outside. And how easy is it to see what's happening outside of us and, man, feel totally emotionally bankrupt, right? We got to come back in here. Jenny, the comment is, Jenny tells you the truth, not what you think you want to hear. Yeah, I've been told that before. The best way I can be of service to the women that I serve is by showing up in you the parts of yourself that you maybe don't want to see, right? And that's where our growth is. Otherwise, I'm just blowing sunshine at you so that you like me. And so then you tell your friends that I'm great because I told you what you want to hear. And my best teachers in my life have been people who love me enough to tell me what they see that I don't want to look at. And that's how we have growth, right? So I will post a link in the comments if you care to book a call with me. I'd be happy to. I got to run. Some of you know I'm featured in Empress this month. Emily Schramm, who's a member of this space here, she is a former CrossFit coach of mine and now has an online experience called, I believe it's empress.com. I posted a link a little while ago, but I'll post it again in the comments below. Anyway, so she's featured me this month and I did a little training in there and I'm doing a live training for her community today. So check her out if you want. She's pretty cool. She's badass coach, lifestyle, maven lady, does all kinds of cool stuff. It's fun working in the online space because I get to connect and reconnect with people. I've known Emily for, I don't know, 7 years or so now, a while. So a real gift to be invited to her space later today, but I got to get on that call. So great to see you all. Mwah. Be well in here. Be emotionally well. Take care of yourself emotionally. I'll look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye.